Hello, everybody. My name is Eric D. Johnson, also known as BrightShine. Live right here in the city of Memphis in the county of state, Tennessee. Today's date is Sunday afternoon, November 24, 2024. The time 1:15 p.m. First, I thank my family, my support for your continued courage support. I continue to keep myself employed in the Memphis tri-state area. Continue to further my education, moral college line. Continue to pursue my social degree instead of being administrative contrary mark. Present time, I took a break and going to school. In the future, I'm gonna go back to school, earn my social degree as well as other degree. Now I'm starting my Facebook Live. Hello, everybody. My name is Eric D. Johnson, also known as BrightShine. I live right here in the city of Memphis in the county of state, Tennessee. Today's date is Sunday afternoon, November the 24th, 2024. The time 1:16 p.m. First, say thank you to my family, my support for your continued courage support. I continue to keep myself employed in the Memphis tri-state area. Continue to further my education, moral college line. Continue to pursue my social degree instead of being administrative contrary mark. Present time, I took a break and going to school. In the future, I'm gonna go back to school, earn my social degree as well as other degree. Now, like I said, well, first of all, I had to work yesterday, on Saturday. Not usual, not no problem, but had to make a few alterations, to my usual routine and everything, but no problem. And everything, it's like I said, it's Sunday afternoon and everything, NFL, is on, everything, even NBA on. But I'm still gonna stay on everything. Just gonna, summarize everything. But what I really wanted to make sure, because this here in the United States of America, this week, Thursday, it's gonna be Thanksgiving. So first, I want to wish everyone here in the United States of America, a happy Thanksgiving and everything. Be safe, and hope that have a happy Thanksgiving, and just try to be safe and everything, and most important, give praise and glory to God, myself, believing that the historical Jesus is the Messiah. And so, however, the Jewish community, they don't believe that the historical Jesus is the Messiah, but they don't make me anti-Jewish, they don't make me anti-Semitic or anything. I believe that the historical Jesus is the Messiah, that the Messiah came. And that's where I stand right there. I try to inform myself about these things, and I don't have any agreement with that so-called Protestant, that denominational, non-denominational, all this, man. The Catholic Church is the foundation of the church. The historical Jesus is the foundation of the church. The Catholic Church is right. The Catholic Church is right. You got Roman Catholic Church. You got Eastern Orthodox churches. You got Oriental Orthodox churches. All Catholic churches. And all Catholic churches are continuing each and every day to work toward reunification, where it's just, as it says, one church. And continuing with in the Catholic Church, continuing with Catholic ecumenism, including with this so-called Protestant stuff. So the Catholic churches continue to work in the right direction. Now, like I said, today being Sunday afternoon, and I'm gonna get on that, but I had to get one in. I had to get one in, just one in. Because I would, like I said, Sunday afternoon, and the reason why it took me so long is because Okay, I was downtown, and you know what I'm saying. On top of the FedEx form and everything, the police and everything talking about, people were talking about, man, it's some man downtown, and he on top of the roof of the FedEx form and everything, and there we go. They talking about he on top of the roof of the FedEx farm. And talking about he got a rifle. And I'm like, man, there ain't no rifle, man. There ain't no rifle. I ain't got, Okay. Talking about, hey man, there's some man over there in the bushes. He over there in the bushes with a rifle. Man, there ain't no rifle, man. Okay. Oh boy. Hold up, was it? Oh boy. Okay. But seriously though. It took me a little time and everything to get myself ready and everything. That's the reason why it's Sunday afternoon, like almost 1:30 p.m. in the afternoon. But I had to lotion my feet. My hands and my feet. Because it took me about 30 minutes on one foot to lotion one foot. And about another 30 minutes to lotion the other foot. Oh boy. And then I had to wash my hands. And then it took me about another 30 minutes to wash each, to put some lotion on each one of my hands. So it took me a minute, to get myself lotioned all up. Oh boy. Okay. Okay. Oh boy. Okay. Look here. Like I said, today I'm not gonna be able to do all the things, But like I said, I wanted to really just because Thanksgiving come up, it's very important we address this thing about this Catholic Church and Protestant. Because like I've been pointing out, the very most important thing of all about being here in the United States of America is one thing you don't never leave out. Is that you got First and Native Americans and the atrocities that have been perpetrated against First and Native Americans. And don't even deny the atrocities. You understand? It's important that first of all, you acknowledge and recognize that the First and Native Americans are human beings with rights. Like all human beings. We human beings, and we all have rights. Every human being on this face of this earth has rights. And that also includes people from sub-Saharan Africa, and people all over the world, just human beings in general, have rights. And so, people were forcibly brought here on slave ships with no other intent just to be slaves by their oppressors, who were majority, not leaving nobody out, not saying that a Catholic person, didn't participate or was not involved in the slave trade. You understand? See, that's the thing you got to make sure you understand. You don't throw the Catholic Church out there in that way, and you don't know what you're talking about. It's possible that a person could say that I'm a Catholic. A person could say that I'm a Catholic and not be faithful. A person, but to say that the Catholic Church as a whole, as a doctrine, as a ideology, that's something that you don't say. You can't say that. And when it comes to slavery, and that's a serious topic. And so, like I said, that's one of the things about this Thanksgiving, is that this so-called Protestant and this mercantilism, all this stuff. And the fact that we as African Americans, black/African Americans, were denied education. That's something that you don't leave out. First of all, you always put that out there first. And that people who were brought here forcibly to be slaves from sub-Saharan Africa, from Africa, were denied education. And so, when it comes to the Catholic Church, when it comes to belief, faith, that is a serious issue for the people who were brought from the continent of Africa and were living here. And when black/African American, once you were brought here to be a slave, it wasn't no like going back. It wasn't no going back. You weren't guaranteed to make it over here on the slave ship. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people didn't. A lot of people who were on the slave ship with chains on, they died. Traveling from sub-Saharan Africa on a slave ship, never made it to America. They died on the ship. They died on the ship and were thrown overboard. And there was all the rest of the people who made it from sub-Saharan Africa on that slave trip, on that slave ship. It wasn't no turning around and going like, you can go back. No, it wasn't. Because then once you got to America, you weren't guaranteed to even live that long. Because you was a slave. It wasn't no such, you ain't had no rights. So when it came to education, there was no such thing. See, we got to make this clear. And see, that's a serious thing for other people around the world as well. If you got people who are totally ignorant, and when you say ignorant, you're not saying that as a label, but you're saying that based on education, information, period. You are ignorant of education. You are ignorant of information. You don't have any knowledge of anything except your present condition, which is being a slave. That's all you know. You don't know nothing else. You didn't even learn how to write, read, or anything. Trying to talk, when the first slaves came over from Southern Africa, the only language they spoke was their language because they were the first ones who came over. So they spoke their language from where they were brought from. That's the only language they know. The only culture and custom that the original slaves knew was their culture and customs from sub-Saharan Africa. They didn't know nothing else. That don't mean you were ignorant though. That's one thing we can say. Even the historians will not disagree that the first slaves who came over from sub-Saharan Africa, they were not ignorant of education. They were not ignorant of information. They were intelligent because they had culture and customs. Once slaves started coming over and started living here in America, becoming Americanized, children started being born, that generation was ignorant of where their parents and grandparents came from. So this is important for other people around the world. Because again, other people around the world will say that the original slaves who were brought from sub-Saharan Africa, they were not ignorant of other people around the world. They were not ignorant of, I even say, they were not even ignorant of what you call Catholic Church. And then by the time, 1700s, Islam was established in the 6th century. So they knew that. As well as Judaism. So the first slaves who came from sub-Saharan Africa, they knew about Judaism, they knew about the Catholic Church, and they knew about Islam. You can't say that the men and women who were brought over from sub-Saharan Africa was a Muslim and they didn't know about Judaism. And you can't say they didn't know about the Catholic Church. You can't say that. Because they did. Because a lot of them were Muslims. So it's important that we talk about Thanksgiving. It's important that we talk about Thanksgiving because the people were denied education and information. A lot of men, women, by the time slavery was over, were misled. Slavery was over. Then they started this stuff in the South, the Ku Klux Klan. But the government tried to educate not only Africa, but first the Freedmen's Bureau, they didn't leave out white people. The Freedmen's Bureau did not leave out white people. Because a lot of white people didn't have access to education and information. So white people were included in the Freedmen's Bureau effort to educate people in America after the Civil War. A lot of people were misled. Just like today, a lot of people have been misled and are being misled. Like, for example, the sorority and fraternity, the sohos and the frat bitches. A lot of them, when they first get to college, were misled before they even got to the college and the university. Black/African American. Because their parents, grandparents were misled. Then you get to college and university. You got people in the alumni who don't do nothing but just do the same thing. Mislead you. So, like I said, today, I know, but the good thing about it, before I did my video today, all my other previous videos, a lot of things, just like the names of God from the Old Testament, the names of God in the Bible, in the New Testament, the Tetragrammaton, that the so-called Protestants run in their mouth. You know what I'm saying? And you know, the discovery of the Dead Sea Scroll, how they tried to suppress that. But then tried to go around, a bunch of criminals tried to go around trying to mislead other people with the discovery of the Nagaman Library. Those other codexes that have been discovered, like the Askew Codex with the Berlin Codex, the Bruce Codex, all those that had been discovered before before 1900. Then the discovery of the Nag Hammadi Library in 1945, and the efforts that had been made to actually get access to the Nag Hammadi Library, but see, this is what criminals did. Without even having access to that information, they went around and misled other people, lied to other people. And so, when I make my video, these are things that I continue to expose, continue to bring to the light of how these criminals going around talking about gang and being a gangster and a mobster, talking about a prefix and a suffix, and how a lot of people in the Black/African American community being denied education couldn't even pronounce their own name. Didn't even know the alphabet, had never learned how to count. But you a real G. The word gang means go in German. You a gangster. What the word mob means? That's a woman's hat in Latin. And you a monster. See, this is the type of thing that you point out to these so-called gangs and organizations. You see, it's important that I do these things because you try to mislead not only me, but my mother and father when they were children. People in the city of Chicago. He had people in the Black/African American community in the early 1900s with the dirty sheets and the wailing sheepers. Had done in the city of Chicago because the Chicago Defender newspaper and the man who owned the newspaper, as well as his wife, Miss Ida B. Wells, who was from the city of Memphis, from this area, were trying to get Black/African Americans to leave the South, not just here in the city of Memphis, but to leave the South from all this Jim Crow and all this stuff and come to the city of Chicago, to the state of Illinois, as well as other cities in the North, because there were jobs for Black/African working in the factories instead of doing all that sharecropping. Get a job in a factory. Hopefully you make a better living than just doing all that sharecropping and picking cotton all day and night from sun up to sundown. And from the dirty sheets and the wailing sheepers, the imperial chaplains in the 14th Street Clovers. And from that, Evan Pepperlo Perry in the youth center with the other guys, the vice lords. Evan Pepperlo Perry was right. He was right. He real. He true. Edwin Pepperlo Perry. He real. He true. Jeff Ford. He real. He true. King David Bosdale. He real. He true. You ain't finna come up in here with this nonsense talking about no Larry Hoover. You gonna get your ass killed. You gonna get your ass killed. I'm telling you what's gonna happen. You gonna get your goddamn ass killed. Talking about some Larry Hoover. I'm gonna show you what I think about a Larry Hoover. I'm a kid. Straight to the point. I'm a kid. Evan Pepperlo Perry is real and true Lord Stone disciple. That's it. That's it. Ain't nothing else to say. That's it. Ain't talking about some damn black gangster new breed. You gonna see. You gonna see. Gonna show you. Gonna be the same damn thing. Gonna kill you. You ain't getting away. You ain't getting away. Talking about no Gnostic Christian. You bitches ain't getting away. See, when I do the things I do, that's what I'm telling you. You ain't getting away. You tried to lie. For example, Sam Cooke. That really pisses me off. That really pisses me off. You had the goddamn nerves to sit around talking about some damn Gnostic Christian. You thought you got away with that shit. It wasn't right. And Miss Barbara Campbell Cook. It wasn't right, man. I don't see what the hell you were laughing at. I heard some mess talking about some people were laughing. Talking about when the man was shot and killed. You thought that was funny. I don't see what the hell you think is funny. I really don't. I really feel sorry for that man as well as Miss Barbara Campbell Cook and for their children. I really don't see what the hell you thought was funny. What's funny? See, that's the reason why I do the things I do. Because I want to know what's funny. What you think is funny. I don't see what's funny. Ain't a damn thing funny to me. Ain't a damn thing funny. That's the reason why I do the things I do. Because ain't a damn thing funny. And what's wrong with that woman done? And see, that's the same damn thing about being denied education, being denied access to information. And you go around and you got these white people who don't do nothing but try to mislead you. With this damn Gnostic Christians mess. This Protestant mess. But that's funny. That's funny. No, that ain't funny. Ain't nothing to laugh about. See, that's the reason why I do the things I do. The way you see it ain't the way I see it. See, there ain't no such thing as no Gnostic Christian. That's what the Jews already told you. There ain't no such thing as no Gnosticism. That's what the Jews already told you. Judaism is monotheism. Judaism does not have anything to do with no dualistic concept. And the Jewish community don't agree with what you call, what was that, Trinitarianism. Well, they don't agree with that about the historical Jesus. As well as the Jews don't believe that the historical Jesus is the Messiah. See, it ain't nothing funny. See, when you go around trying to be a smart ass, and think you're getting away with it, what I've been saying is this. The first thing I'm going to say is this. Them police cars riding around, law enforcement riding around them cars with a radio in that damn car. That's the first thing I'm going to say. That's the only reason why your ass still alive. That's the only reason your ass still alive. Is law enforcement. That's it. There ain't nothing else to be said. That's it. Because I'll kill every damn one of you. I'll go right out on this street and look for you. And when I find you, I'll kill you. I'll kill you. Your Gnostic ass. I'll kill you. You ain't nobody to me. I got access to education. I got access to information. And I take advantage of the opportunity. So a Gnostic ain't nobody to me. I will kill you. Without no hesitation. Kill you. ain't nobody. Because first of all, that was the Jews already told you. You ain't nobody. Because it ain't no such thing. And then next, the Catholic Church. Again, you ain't nobody. Because it ain't no such thing. You just make up a bunch of damn lies. Then you go around having anal sex. That's what you do. You just sit around and make up a bunch of damn lies. Then you have anal sex. So like I said, I'm doing my video today. And the thing I want to make sure, because Thanksgiving is coming, is to make sure don't leave out all this stupid stuff about this so-called Protestant mess. All this stuff, this Peter Waddle and John Wycliffe, John Calvin, and what's the one got burned off? John Huss got burned at the stake. All of them tried to talk about indulgence, included indulgence. And then Martin Luther brought up indulgence again. And at the Diet Spire, just like all the rest of them before him, was declared a heretic. And behind that, you had the 30 Years' War. For no reason. For no reason. Because the so-called Protestant, the Catholic Church, as well as the Jewish community, they told you there's no such thing. They told you what was right. They told you the truth. So it wasn't no reason for you to get into a war with the Catholic Church. Period. What time? Okay. Now, but like I said, that's the reason why I wanted to do my video, because I want to make sure we go over these things. And see, on my previous videos, it's a good thing that's the reason why. Because on days like today, a lot of things I've already done and made clear. All that trying to lie, no, you don't get away with that. Now, BibleStudyTool.com, from the New International Version of the Holy Bible. The Bible verse of the day, 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 4. And it reads, "For everything good created is good, and nothing is to be rejected if it is received with thanksgiving." And again, that's the Bible verse of the day. Reading from the New International Version of the Holy Bible. And also, you have today's Bible reading coming from the 2 Peter, 3rd chapter. Also, the book of Jeremiah, that's in the Old Testament. Chapters 45 and 46. And the book of Psalms, number 141. That's today's Bible reading. Yeah, Bible study video, featured verse topics. Yeah, popular Bible verses. Ain't gonna go over all of them for time. Popular Bible commentaries, and so on and so forth. So go to BibleStudyTool.com, and all these things will be available. And also all available versions of the Holy Bible. But for time's sake, like I said, go to BibleStudyTool.com. You'll see all the available versions of the Holy Bible. Now I'm going to click over to Bible Gateway. The verse of the day, reading from the New International Version of the Holy Bible, coming from the book of Colossians, the 2nd chapter, verse 6 and 7. And it reads, so then, just as you received Christ Jesus as Lord, continue to live your lives in him, rooted and built up in him, strengthened in faith as you were taught, and overflowing with thankfulness. So again, that's the verse of the day. Reading from the book of Colossians, the 2nd chapter, verse 6 and 7, reading from the New International Version of the Holy Bible. And also Bible Gateway also have all available versions of the Holy Bible, language from A to Z, and versions of the Holy Bible. Now, let me go here. All right. All right. Let me see here. As you know, Wikipedia is a reference. Always remember citations, footnotes, notes, references, and sources. Now, we have access to the Encyclopedia Britannica. You have encyclopedia.com. Then you have the New World Encyclopedia. Oh, let me go back. I'm going to click over here on encyclopedia.com right quick. Now, we're dealing with Catholic Reformation and Counter-Reformation. I want to click, like I said, I'm on encyclopedia.com. Then I'm going to go back to the beginning. But the reason why I'm clicking over on encyclopedia.com because that's what I was looking at. Catholic Reformation is one thing. Counter-Reformation is another thing. It all happened at the same time, but they had different goals. So let me click right quick. All right, let's make sure we're clear. Catholic Reformation, Counter-Reformation. Scholars use the terms Catholic Reformation and Counter-Reformation to identify the changes in the Roman Catholic Church that occurred in the 1400s and 1500s. The phrase Catholic Reformation generally refers to the efforts at reform that began in the late Middle Ages and continued throughout the Renaissance. Counter-Reformation means the steps the Catholic Church took to oppose the growth of Protestantism in the 1500s. Two different things. It's the Catholic Church. Now, let's deal with it. All right, Catholic Reformation. Toward the end of the Middle Ages, many people became unhappy with the behavior of high-ranking officials in the Catholic Church. At the same time, many Christians were searching for new ways to express their devotion to God. Their concerns triggered a movement for reform. Complaints about church officials were widespread in the 1400s. Some of the most common charges were that church officials ignored church laws, that popes were corrupt, that cardinals lived in luxury, and that bishops did not reside within their dioceses. Several councils in the 1400s and early 1500s attempted to address these problems. However, many officials, especially the popes, did not support reforms. Meanwhile, many Christians craved better ways of expressing their faith. In the Netherlands, a movement called the Devotion Moderna encouraged people to form religious communities like those within the early Christian church. Mystics recorded their experiences of an intimate union with God. Humanists like Desiderius Erasmus called for changes in the way the Catholic faith was taught, studied, and practiced. So that's the Catholic Reformation. Counter-Reformation. In 1517, a German monk named Martin Luther challenged the Roman Catholic Church on many points of doctrine. For example, he argued that only the grace of God could save people from punishment after death, and that human actions could not lead to salvation. He also based his theology on the Bible rather than on the traditions and practices of the church. Luther's actions marked the beginning of the Protestant Reformation. The rapid growth of Protestantism alarmed Catholics, and they demanded that church leaders deal with the situation. So, like I said, what I was looking at, some of the things that have been. I don't have time to go, but I'll say, okay, we talking about the Counter Reformation. So you had the Council of Trent. I just say that, okay, and then you had things that had to deal with the papacy, local authorities keeping the faith, and so on and so forth. You also had women in the church. And so these are things that were done like I said, all of this is the Catholic Church. You had Counter Reformation and Catholic Reformation. But when you say these things, you have two different goals. And so, like I said, we were reading from encyclopedia.com. All right. Okay. All right. So we got Encyclopedia Britannica, as well as other encyclopedias like, World Book Encyclopedia, so on and so forth. Encyclopedia.com we just read from. And we also have Wikipedia. All right. Like I said, we over here on Wikipedia. What time is it? Okay. And because of time, I'm not going to really just spend too much time. But I know Thanksgiving is coming. I want to put this in there, so when I leave my video, when you sitting around talking about Thanksgiving, I want you to think on this. Put this in your mind. All right, let's see here. All right, when we talk about the Counter Reformation or Catholic Revival, was the period of Catholic resurgence that was initiated in response to and as an alternative to the Protestant Reformation at the time. It is frequently dated to have begun with the Council of Trent, 1545-1563, and to end with the conclusion of the European Wars of Religion in 1648. Though this is controversial, the broader term Catholic Reformation also encompasses reforms and movements within the church in the periods immediately before Protestantism or Trent and lasting later. Now, initiated in part to address the challenges of the Protestant Reformation. The Counter-Reformation was a comprehensive effort arising from the decrees of the Council of Trent. The effort produced apologetic and polemical documents, heresy trials, anti-corruption efforts, spiritual movements, the promotion of new religious orders, and the flourishing of new art and musical styles. Such policies by the imperial diets of the Holy Roman Empire had long-lasting effects in European history, with exiles of Protestants continuing until the 1781 Patent of Toleration, although smaller expulsions took place in the 19th century. Now let me put this out there, which your common sense, the Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church is mostly European, like Western European, as well as Central Europe, extending some parts, all around, but the Roman Catholic. You have Eastern Orthodox Catholic churches. You have Oriental Orthodox Catholic churches. All Catholic churches, in some shape, form, or fashion, starting with the councils, identify themselves in some shape, form, in that way. Not the only way, but in that way, based on the councils. Now, when we talk about this Protestant Reformation, let's not overlook. Now, we had situations, we had these issues in Europe. A lot of this stuff started in Europe, like Peter Waldo and some of this early reform movement stuff. A lot of this stuff is European based, West European based. Peter Waldo and John Wycliffe. John Wycliffe is over in England. And who else? What's his name? John Huss. Now he a Czechoslovakian. We talking about Central Europe, things like that, because the Catholic Church has spread all the way over to Russia. And that's John Huss, and then Martin Luther. He over in Germany. Now, let's don't forget that since the church has spread, even though you say Roman Catholic Church, then we say Eastern Orthodox Catholic churches, then you say Oriental Orthodox Catholic churches. The things that were happening in Europe, this so-called Protestant stuff, you got Eastern Orthodox churches. When the Roman Empire, let's go back to Constantine, and even before Constantine, the Roman Empire, there was a lot of martyrs being martyred from the Catholic Church. Because the Catholic Church at that time was not Eastern Orthodox or Oriental Orthodox, or not even Roman Catholic. It was the Catholic Church. When the church started spreading to different continents, it was the Catholic Church. Constantine became emperor. He converted from his pagan beliefs to the Catholic Church. At the first council, the Council of Nicaea, the first council, Constantine was sitting right there. He was present at that council. All Catholic churches today they recognize their council. All Catholic churches, they recognize their council. By the time you get to the 14th, 15th, now let's not forget one more thing that Constantine did while he was still alive. Constantine was the leader he was the emperor of the Roman Empire. Let's make sure we don't forget. And at that time, the capital of the Roman Empire was in Rome. The Roman Empire was being attacked at its borders. Constantine had to do something about to protect the Roman Empire. So what did he moved the capital to Byzantium. Rome was still there. The Catholic Church was still there. Constantine moved to Byzantium. That's what they call Constantinople. That's what they call Istanbul today in Turkey. After that, that's what did all this. Later on, when you get to the Middle Ages, the so-called schism between the East and the West. And then after that, that's the reason why you hear all this Roman Catholic Church, Eastern Orthodox Catholic Church, and Oriental Orthodox Catholic churches. And a lot of churches align themselves based on some the councils of all Catholic churches. But the thing I wanted to make sure we don't is when you had to deal with this Protestant stuff that was based in Europe, Western Europe specifically. The Eastern Orthodox Catholic churches and the Oriental Orthodox Catholic churches, they were and are aware of what Martin Luther and all these other so-called Protestants were talking about. For example, predestination and transubstantiation. All that stuff that was brought up, all Catholic churches today, all Catholic churches are aware of what these so-called Protestants brought up. So these things are nothing, they are very serious. They're very serious. It's not just the Roman Catholic Church that's trying to deal with this. So when we talking about the Counter-Reformation and the Catholic Reformation, it's serious. Even though it was mainly the European Catholics addressing the issue in Europe, what you're talking about the Pope, it's not just a European issue, as well as the other issues in the Catholic Church. It pertains to all Catholic churches. Now, in continuing what we left off at, all those smaller exposures took place in the 19th century. Such reforms include the foundation of seminaries for the proper training of priests in the spiritual life and the theological traditions of the church, the reform of religious life by returning orders to their spiritual foundation, and new spiritual movements focusing on the devotional life and a personal relationship with Christ, including Spanish mystics and the French school of spirituality. It also involved political activities and used the regional inquisitions. A primary emphasis of the Counter-Reformation was a mission to reach parts of the world that had been colonized as predominantly Catholic, and also tried to reconvert nations such as Sweden and England that once were Catholic from the time of the Christianization of Europe, but had been lost to the Reformation. Various counter-Reformation theologians focused only on defending doctrinal positions such as the sacraments and pious practices that were attacked by the Protestant reformers up to the Second Vatican Council in 1962 to 1965. Now, let me see. All right. Now, since we're over here, we're going to click colonize. The first wave of European colonization. The first wave of European colonization began with Spanish and Portuguese conquests and explorations and primarily involved the European colonization of the Americas, though it also included the establishment of European colonies in India and in maritime Southeast Asia. During this period, European interests in Africa primarily focused on the establishment of trading posts there, particularly for the African slave trade. The wave ended with the British annexation of the Kingdom of Kandy in 1815 and the founding of the colony of Singapore in 1819. The time period in which much of the first wave of European colonization and other exploratory ventures occurred is often labeled the Age of Discovery. A later major phase of European colonization, which started in the late 19th century and primarily focused on Africa and Asia, is known as the period of new imperialism. Now, we're going to read about this part here. We want the role of the church. Okay, yeah. We want to see, this is important. See, when we talk about Thanksgiving, the role of the church. Religious zeal played a large role in Spanish and Portuguese overseas activities, while the Pope himself was a political power to be heeded, as evidenced by his authority to decree whole continents open to colonization by particular kings. The church also sent missionaries to convert the indigenous peoples of other continents to the Catholic faith. Thus, the 1455 Pope Bull Romanus Pontificus granted the Portuguese all lands behind Cape Bojador and allowed them to reduce pagans and other enemies of Christ to perpetual slavery. Later, the 1481 Papal Bull Antony Regis granted all lands such south of the Canary Islands to Portugal, while in May 1493 the Spanish-born Pope Alexander VI decreed in the Bull Inter Caetera that all lands west of a meridian, only 100 leagues west of the Cape Verde Islands, should belong to Spain, while new lands discovered east of the line would belong to Portugal. These arrangements were later precise with the 1494 Treaty of Tordesillas. The Dominicans and Jesuits, notably Francis Xavier in Asia, were particularly active in this endeavor. Many buildings erected by the Jesuits still stand, such as the Cathedral of St. Paul in Macau and the Santisima Trinidad de Paraná in Paraguay, an example of a Jesuit reduction. Spanish treatment of the indigenous population provoked a fierce debate at home in 1551, dubbed the Valladolid debate, over whether Indians possessed souls, and if so, whether they were entitled to the basic rights of mankind. Bartholomew de las Casas, author of a short account of the destruction of the Indies, championed the cause of the natives and was opposed by Sepulveda, who claimed Amerindians were natural slaves. the school of Salamanca, which gathered theologians such as Francisco de Vittori, 1480 to 1546, or Francisco Suarez, 1548 to 1617, argued in favor of the existence of natural law. And what is natural law? It is a system of law based on a close observation of natural order and human nature, from which values thought by natural laws proponents to be intrinsic to human nature can be deduced and applied independently or of positive law. So, natural law, which thus gave some rights to indigenous people. However, while the school of Salamanca limited Charles V's imperial powers over colonized people, they also legitimized the conquest, defining the conditions of just war. For example, these theologians admitted the existence of the right for indigenous people to reject religious conversion, which was a novelty for Western philosophical thought. However, Suarez also conceived many particular cases, a casuistry in which conquest was legitimized. Hence, war was justified if the indigenous people refused free transit and commerce to the Europeans, if they forced converts to turn to idolatry. If there comes to be a sufficient number of Christians in the newly discovered land that they wish to receive from the Pope a Christian government. If the indigenous people lack just laws, magistrates, agricultural techniques, etc. In any case, title taken according to this principle must be exercised with Christian charity, warned Suarez, and for the advantage of the Indians. Henceforth, the school of Salamanca legitimized the conquest while at the same time limiting the absolute power of the sovereign, which was celebrated in other parts of Europe under the notion of the divine right of kings. In the 1970s, the Jesuits would become a main proponent of the liberation theology, which openly supported anti-imperialist movements. Aspects of it were officially criticized in 1984 and in 1986 by then Cardinal Ratzinger, later Pope Benedict XVI, as the head of the Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith, under charges of Marxist tendencies, who nevertheless praised its commitment to social justice, poverty, and what he called the scandal of the arms race. Pope John Paul II, in a speech to Brazilian bishops in 1986, would subsequently say that a theology of liberation was necessary. All right, let me see. Now, all right, let me see. Now I'm going to read this little part here. We're talking about Northern European challenges to the Iberian hegemony. It was not long before the exclusivity of Iberian claims to the Americas was challenged by other European powers, primarily the Netherlands, France, and England. The view taken by the rulers of these nations is epitomized by the quotation attributed to Francis I of France, demanding to be shown the clause in Adam's will excluding his authority from the New World. The challenge initially took the form of privateering raids, such as that led by Francis Drake on Spanish treasure fleets or coastal settlements. But later, northern European countries began establishing settlements of their own, primarily in areas that were outside of Spanish interests, such as what is now the eastern seaboard of the United States and Canada, or islands in the Caribbean such as Aruba, Martinique, and Barbados that had been abandoned by the Spanish in favor of the mainland and larger islands. Whereas Spanish colonization was based on the religious conversion and exploitation of local population via encomiendas, many Spaniards immigrated to the Americas to elevate their social status and were not interested in manual labor. Northern European colonialism was frequently bolstered by people fleeing religious persecution or intolerance. For example, the Mayflower voyage. The motive for immigration was not to become an aristocrat nor to spread one's faith, but to start afresh in a new society where life would be hard, but one would be free to exercise one's religious beliefs. The most populous immigration of the 17th century was that of the English. And after a series of wars with the Dutch and the French, the English overseas possessions came to dominate the east coast of North America, an area stretching from Virginia northwest to New England and Newfoundland. Although during the 17th century an even greater number of English immigrants settled in the West Indies. However, the English, French, and Dutch were no more averse to making a profit than the Spanish and the Portuguese. And whilst their area of settlement in the Americas proved to be devoid of the precious metals found by the Spanish trade in other commodities and products that could be sold at massive profit, and Europe provided another reason for crossing the Atlantic, in particular furs from Canada, tobacco and cotton grown in Virginia, and sugar in the islands of the Caribbean and Brazil, due to the massive depletion of indigenous labor. Plantation owners had to look elsewhere for manpower for these labor-intensive crops. They turned to the centuries-old slave trade of West Africa and began transporting humans across the Atlantic on a massive scale. Historians estimate that the Atlantic slave trade brought between 10 and 12 million individuals to the New World. The islands of the Caribbean soon came to be populated by slaves of African descent, ruled over by a white minority of plantation owners interested in making a fortune and then returning to their home country to spend it. Now I'm gonna scroll down. All right, the part I just read was what was this? Northern European challenges to Iberian hegemony, and then you have rule in the colonies. Then you got rule of companies and early colonialism, European colonies in India during the first wave of colonization. Now I want to scroll down. This is why I want to scroll down to the destruction of the indigenous population in the Americas. The arrival of the conquistadors and other Europeans led to the population decline of the vast majority of the indigenous peoples of the Americas. However, contemporary historians now generally reject the black legend. Now, what's that? The black legend, or the Spanish black legend, is a purported historiographical tendency which consists of anti-Spanish and anti-Catholic propaganda. Its proponents argue that its roots date back to the 16th century and so on and so forth. All right. According to which the brutality of the European colonists accounted for most of the deaths. It is now generally believed that diseases such as the smallpox brought upon the Columbian exchange were the greatest destroyer, although the brutality of the conquest itself isn't contested. After the decline of the indigenous population in the Caribbean, the mines and the sugarcane plantations were then worked on by slaves transported to the Americas during the Atlantic slave trade from Africa. There were acts of genocide in 19th century post-colonial states, notably in the United States with the California genocide, in Argentina from 1829 to 1852, openly pursued the extermination of the local population, an event related by Darwin in the Voyage of the Beagle, 1839. Roses were then followed by the conquest of the desert in the 1870s and 80s. The result was the death of a large proportion of the Mapuche population in Patagonia. Okay. Now, contemporary historians debate the legitimacy of calling the destruction of the indigenous peoples a genocide. Estimates of the pre-Columbian population have ranged from a low of 8.4 million to a high of 112.5 million persons. In 1976, geographer William Denevan derived a consensus count of about 54 million people. David Standard has argued that the destruction of the indigenous peoples of the Americas was, far and away, the most massive act of genocide in the history of the world, with almost 100 million indigenous peoples killed in what he called the American Holocaust. Ward Churchill also believed that the indigenous peoples were deliberately and systematically exterminated over the course of several centuries, and that the process continues to the present day. Standard's claim of 100 million deaths has been disputed because he makes no distinction between death from violence and death from disease. In response, political scientist R.J. Rummel has instead estimated that over the centuries of European colonization, about 2 million to 15 million American indigenous people were the victims of what he calls democide. And what is that? Democide refers to the intentionally killing of an unarmed or disarmed person by government agents acting in their authoritative capacity and pursuant to government policy or high command. Okay. Even if these figures are remotely true, writes Rommel, then this still makes this subjugation of the Americas one of the bloodier centuries-long democides in world history. So when you think about Thanksgiving, you should refer, to information that's available. Encyclopedias as well as Wikipedia. And so, like I said, where I'm reading from is Wikipedia, the first wave of European colonization. Now, let me see where I'm going to click. Okay. Now, we over here on first wave of European colonization. I'm going to click over here to Age of Discovery. Now, the Age of Discovery, between 1418 and 1620, also known as the Age of Exploration, was part of the early modern period and largely overlapped with the Age of Sail. It was a period from approximately the late 15th century to the 17th century, during which seafarers from a number of European countries explored, colonized, and conquered regions across the globe. The Age of Discovery was a transformative period in world history when previously isolated parts of the world became connected to form the world system and laid the groundwork for globalization. The extensive overseas exploration, particularly the opening of maritime routes to the Indies and the European colonization of the Americas by the Spanish and Portuguese, later joined by the English, French, and Dutch, spurred in the international global trade. The interconnected global economy of the 21st century has its origins in the expansion of trade networks during this era. The exploration also created colonial empires and marked an increased adoption of colonialism as a government policy in several European states. As such, it is sometimes synonymous with the first wave of European colonization. And that's what I just was reading. Yeah, that's what I just read from. The colonization reshaped power dynamics, causing geopolitical shifts in Europe and creating new centers of power beyond Europe, having set human history on the global common course. The legacy of the age still shapes the world today. Now, let's see, this is the reason why when we talk about these things and we talk about the Roman Catholic Church, the other Catholic churches, the Eastern Orthodox Catholic churches, and the Oriental Orthodox Catholic Church, and we're talking about colonization in Spain and Portugal competing with one another, and then you had the English, the French, and the Dutch, as well as other European. See, this is the reason why this is important. Now, then we start talking about the Americas and all this. But see, that other parts of the world, slave trade in Africa. Okay, here we go. European oceanic exploration started with the maritime expedition of Portugal to the Canary Islands in 1336, and later with the Portuguese discoveries of the Atlantic archipelagos of Madeira and Azores, the coast of West Africa in 1434, and the establishment of the sea route to India in 1498 by Vasco da Gama, which initiated the Portuguese maritime and trade presence in Caribe in the Indian Ocean. During the Age of Discovery, Spain sponsored and financed the transatlantic voyages of the Italian navigator Christopher Columbus, which from 1492 to 1504 marked the start of colonization in the Americas, and the expedition of the Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan to open a route from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific, which later achieved the first circumnavigation of the globe between 1519 and 1522. These Spanish expeditions significantly impacted the European perceptions of the world. These discoveries led to numerous naval expeditions across the Atlantic, Indian, and Pacific Oceans, and land expeditions in the Americas, Asia, Africa, and Australia. They continued into the late 19th century, followed by the exploration of the polar regions in the 20th century. European exploration initiated the Columbian exchange between the Old World, Europe, Asia, and Africa, and the New World, the Americas, and Australia. This exchange involved the transfer of plants, animals, human population, including slaves, communicable diseases, and culture across the eastern and western hemisphere. The age of discovery and European exploration involved mapping of the world, shaping a new worldview, and facilitating contact with distant civilizations. The continents drawn by European mapmakers of the age developed from abstract blobs into the outlines more recognizable to us today. Simultaneously, the spread of new diseases, especially affecting American Indians, led to rapid population declines. The era saw widespread enslavement, exploitation, and military conquest of native populations. Concurrent with the growing economic influence and spread of Western and European culture, science, and technology, leading to a faster than exponential population growth worldwide. Okay. Now, what I was, we still on the same page. I'm looking. Make sure I ain't leave. What time? Okay. But like I said, Thanksgiving is coming up, and it's a serious thing. It's very serious. And like I said, what we're reading on today, we talking about the age of discovery. Okay. Just want to read one part. Okay, we still on the age of discovery. I'm looking at all this, and when it comes to religion, religion played a critical role in motivating European expansionism. In 1487, Portuguese envoys Pero da Cavilla and Afonso de Paiva were sent on a covert mission to gather intelligence on a potential sea route to India and inquire about Prester John, a Nestorian patriarch and king believed to rule over parts of the subcontinent. Cavilla was warmly received upon his arrival in Ethiopia, but forbidden from leaving. During the Middle Ages, the spread of Christianity throughout Europe fueled the desire to sermonize in lands beyond. This evangelical effort became a significant part of the military conquest of European powers like Portugal, Spain, and France, often leading to the conversion of indigenous people, voluntarily or forced. Religious orders such as the Franciscans, Dominicans, Augustinians, and Jesuits partook in most missionary endeavors in the New World. By the late 16th to 17th century, the latter's presence increased as they sought to reassert their power and revive the Catholic culture of Europe, which had been damaged by the Reformation. So we see that the Catholic Church in Europe was instrumental in a lot of the motivation to travel to what they call the New World. Okay. Now, before I end today's video, this is what I want to click to. I want to make sure I don't forget. The Catholic Church in the Age of Discovery. The Catholic Church during the Age of Discovery inaugurated a major effort to spread Christianity in the New World and to convert the indigenous peoples of the Americas and other indigenous peoples. The evangelical effort was a major part of and a justification for the military conquest of European powers, such as Portugal, Spain, and France. Christian missions to the indigenous peoples ran hand in hand with the colonial efforts of Catholic nations in the Americas and other colonies in Asia and Africa. Most missions were run by religious orders such as the Franciscans, Dominicans, Augustinians, and Jesuits. In Mexico, the early systemic evangelization by mendicants came to be known as the spiritual conquest of Mexico. Antonio de Montesinos, a Dominican friar on the island of Hispaniola, was the first member of the clergy to publicly denounce all forms of enslavement and oppression of the indigenous peoples of the Americas. Theologians such as Francisco de Vitoria and Bartolomé de las Casas drew up theological and philosophical basis for the defense of the human rights of the colonized native population, thus creating the basis of international law, regulating the relationship between nations. Important contemporary ecclesiastical documents taking a strong stance on enslaving or despoiling the indigenous peoples of the Americas was the ecclesiastical letter, Pastoral Officium, and the superseding encyclical Sublimis Deus. In the early years, most mission work was undertaken by the religious orders. Over time, it was intended that a normal church structure would be established in the mission areas. The process began with the formation of special jurisdictions known as apostolic prefectures and apostolic vicariates. These developing churches eventually graduated to regular diocesan status with the appointment of a local bishop. After decolonization, this process increased in pace as church structures altered to reflect new political administrative realities. And so, let me see. Okay, now what I'm still reading from the same Catholic Church and the Age of Discovery. I want to make sure I point this out. Age of Discovery, okay. And then you see Creator, Omnium. Then you see Dom Diversus. And this one, I'm going to read this little part here. After the age of the discovery of America, many of the clergy sent to the New World began to criticize Spain and the church's treatment of indigenous people. In December 1511, Antonio de Montesinos, a Dominican friar, openly rebuked the Spanish rulers of Hispaniola for their cruelty and tyranny in dealing with the natives. King Ferdinand enacted the laws of Burgos. It was promulgated on 27 December 1512 in Burgos. The Crown of Castile, Spain, was the first codified set of laws governing the behavior of Spaniards in the Americas, particularly with regard to the indigenous people of the Americas. They forbade the slavery of the indigenous people, and so on and so forth. And so they enacted the laws of Burgos and Valladolid in response. However, enforcement was lax, and the new laws of 1542 took a stronger line. This caused a revolt among the Spanish colonists, and the alarmed government backed down, softening the effect of the laws. Some historians blame the church for not doing enough to liberate the Indians. Others point to the church as the only voice raised on behalf of indigenous peoples. The issue resulted in a crisis of conscience in 16th century Spain. The reaction of Catholic writers such as Bartolome de las Casas and Francisco de Vitoria led to debate on the nature of human rights and the birth of modern international law. French, English, and Dutch reactions against the maritime monopolies granted to Portugal and Spain, meanwhile, culminated in Hugo Grotius's work articulating the doctrine of freedom of the seas. In 1524, Franciscan missionaries known as the 12 Apostles of Mexico arrived in what is New Spain, followed by the Dominicans in 1526 and the Augustinians in 1533. They worked hard to convert the Indians and to provide for their well-being by establishing schools and hospitals, because some people questioned whether the Indians were truly men who deserved baptism. Pope Paul III in the papal bull Veritas Ipsa or Sublimus Deus, 1537, confirmed that the Indians were deserving men. Afterward, the conversion effort gained momentum. And so like I said, I wanted to make sure I at least put that on my video, and like Catholic Church and the Age of Discovery. The first wave of European colonization. The Counter-Reformation / Catholic Reformation. Two different goals. It all dealing with the Catholic Church. You have the Counter-Reformation. That's one thing. And then you have the Catholic Reformation. It's all the Catholic Church. But we're going to continue to stay on these things because these issues are important. You know, people have these perceptions in their mind. They have this view in their mind. So when you be sitting around Thanksgiving, you go to these online, go online, or you can go to the library. Remember, citations, footnotes, notes, references, and sources. See, all this education, all this information is in the library. That's what the World Wide Web is based on, the library. Making sure that every human being has access to education, has access to information. Every human being. And that's the right thing to do. And so, here in the United States of America, like I said, this week, we'll be celebrating Thanksgiving. So you take time to reflect on these things. Because it's serious. It's important. It's important. It's not something that you can just overlook and disregard. It's serious. And all this nonsense about some Gnostic Christian. It's a lie. And that's the reason why on my previous videos, I've been going over these issues, going over these topics continuously. To make sure there's an understanding. You got to comprehend the information. And so, when this Thanksgiving comes, it's for everybody. You take time to reflect. You see how the Catholic Church was the motivating factor behind all this expansion to the New World. It was the Catholic Church countering Protestantism. And then what came behind it, once people came to the United States of America, there was what is called the Great Awakening. See, all that stupid stuff, coming from Europe, then coming here to America. See, all that denominational and non-denominational. Starting over in Europe. Then you get here to the United States of America. Some of it started over in Europe, but a lot of it is when people left Europe, they came here to the United States of America. And then all this awakening, the Great Awakening, and then you know. So, matter of fact, let me see what. And so, like I said, we're going to get a little more in depth, but let's just touch on it. I got a few more minutes. But the Great Awakening was a series of religious revivals in American Christian history. Historians and theologians identify 3 or sometimes 4 waves of increased religious enthusiasm between the early 18th century and the late 20th century. Each of these great awakenings was characterized by widespread revivals led by evangelical Protestant ministers, a sharp increase of interest in religion, a profound sense of conviction and redemption on the part of those affected, an increase in the evangelical church membership, and the formation of new religious movements and denominations. The first Great Awakening began in 1730s and lasted to about 1740, though pockets of revivalism had occurred in years prior, especially amongst the ministry of Solomon Stoddard and Jonathan Edwards' grandfather. Edwards' congregation was involved in a revival later called the Frontier Revivals in the mid-1730s, though this was on the wane by 1737. So you had the first Great Awakening. All this stuff is happening in America, and you see who it is: the Protestants. You see who it is? It's the Protestants. See, once they came to America, the West European, they came to America. But one thing don't never do. Don't never forget the Gnostic Christian. Mixed in, blended in. Like I said, hey, you saw who it was, that Great Awakening here in the United States of America. You see who it is. It's the Protestant. The Protestant. Making all these absurd claims. So when you see Thanksgiving, when you celebrate Thanksgiving this week, this coming Thursday, it'll be Thanksgiving. You reflect on these things. The information is available. Encyclopedia and the World Wide Web on Wikipedia. So you take advantage of getting your education and inform yourself. So when you think about Thanksgiving this week, you think about the great, the age of discovery, and you see how the Counter Reformation and the Catholic Reformation, you see how the Counter Reformation to counter Protestantism, the Catholic Church already had colonies established in the New World. So the Counter Reformation, as well as the Catholic Reformation, we're talking about the first wave of European colonization. Talking about the age of discovery, the age of sail. You're talking about the Catholic Church and the age of discovery. And we're going, like I said, we're going to get into this great awakening. But as you can see, you see who the great awakening is. It's the Protestants. Some nonsense. Because there were the Protestants, a bunch of nonsense. So what they call it? Solos. Oh man. Look, I'm gonna get ready to end today's video. And again, my name is Eric D. Johnson, also known as BrightShine. I live right here in the city of Memphis, in the county sheriff, in the state of Tennessee. And I thank all my family, my support, for your continued courage and support. I thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, Son of God, for all the blessings and the guidance He provided me as well as all of us with. And like I said, I want to this week is coming up, holiday coming up, Thanksgiving. And last Sunday was my birthday, and I just I enjoyed my birthday. I was able to have a happy birthday, and I thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for blessing me to be able to celebrate another birthday. And I hope and pray that He bless me to be able to celebrate another birthday. And so, and continue to pray. There are wars being fought all over the world. That's a serious thing. And continue to pray. And that these wars will end. There are wars being fought, like Russia and Ukraine and all this stuff. It's getting really serious. It could be it's a possibility, some nuclear stuff could be involved if this thing just continues to escalate, And so continue to pray. We had the continued war in Israel, in Gaza, in the Middle East. There was wars being fought on the continent of Africa, from the north, all over the continent of Africa. There are wars still being fought. The possibility of wars being fought in Asia, Europe. We got the war in Ukraine, that's in Europe as well as Asia. Mexico, Central, South America, Caribbean, all these islands all over the world. It's a possibility of war can be fought all over the world. So continue to pray for peace. Continue to pray for peace. And so, like I said, I'm going to get ready to end today's video. And until next time, you take care of yourself. And I wish each and every one of you the very best. And I wish each and every one of you have a happy and safe Thanksgiving. Until next time, take care of yourself. I wish each and every one of you the very best.